There's an old hymn that I need some help on this morning. I need thee, oh, I need thee, every hour I need thee, oh, bless me now, my Savior, I come to thee. Y'all sounded good. Help drown me out. How did you feel on Wednesday morning? More than 66 million Americans woke up with a pit in our stomachs on Wednesday morning. It felt like something had been lost, something much larger than one election. For some, it felt like being a stranger in your own house. For some, it felt like grief and fear had slipped through the back door and made itself a plate and sit down at the table without anybody knowing it was supposed to be in the room. Those emotions that so many of us are still trying to process are painful, and they need to be named. Wednesday night, many of us gathered in Fellowship Hall to do just that, to hold space with one another and the myriad of emotions that flooded our bodies. I want to name some of what we heard together on Wednesday night. Some of us on Wednesday said that we were afraid of the integrity of our courts. Some of us named a concern for immigrants living in our country amidst promises of mass deportation. Some of us expressed fear for women in our lives and their autonomy over their bodies. Some of us named a concern for our LGBTQ community. And I appreciate that, because I would be lying if I said that I hadn't held on to Patrick just a little tighter over these past few days. After each fear and lament we offered, we sang that line that we just sang together. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. We ended our time together on Wednesday night by sharing communion, that ritual which invites us to remember that God's Spirit joins us in both suffering and redemption. Throughout the Bible, if there's one thing that the people of God are told more than anything else, it is to remember. Remember the covenant that God made with Noah and Abraham. Remember when God liberated you from bondage in Egypt. Remember that in the wilderness, when there was nothing to eat, God provided manna from on high. Remember the mighty deeds of God delivering you to the promised land. Remember these stories we're told, and then hand down these stories to future generations so that they will remember of the faithfulness of God. I don't know about you, but it is easier for me to remember in that way. It is easier for me to see clearly where God is at work in the world when my eyes are not filled with tears. It is easy to see and name God's work in our lives when things are going well. But when life gets tough, when we wake up to see that our candidate lost the election, or when we wake up worried about having rights ripped away from us, or when we wake up concerned about how we're going to make ends meet, when we lose someone we love, when Wednesday mornings happen that leave us questioning our worth, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to remember. When Elijah encounters the unnamed widow in our text, the outlook is grim. The political leadership of Israel in the 8th century BCE was left to King Ahab, who the Bible says did evil in the sight of the Lord more than all before him. Elijah, the prophet of God, confronts Ahab just before our text begins this morning. And Elijah tells Ahab that because of his leadership, there is going to be a drought in the land. And the Bible says after Elijah's prophecy, rain is withheld, and Elijah takes refuge on the banks of a river east of the Jordan. Ravens come to feed Elijah twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening, and things are going well until the river runs dry because of the drought. So Elijah has to leave. And the word of the Lord propels Elijah to go to a foreign land beyond the borders of Israel. And when Elijah gets there, he discovers that the drought is not limited to Israel's borders. Isn't it interesting how the most complex challenges of the world don't carry a passport with them? The unnamed widow is not Pollyannish about the reality she faces. She tells Elijah, I am gathering up sticks so that when I go home, I can fix a fire, and I'm going to take what little we have, bake a cake. I'm going to eat it. My son's going to eat it. It's going to be our last meal. We're going to sit down together. We're going to eat, and then we're going to die. The widow was out of meal, out of water, out of energy. She felt utterly powerless. And by the way, who is this man in the middle of the drought who says, excuse me, ma'am, I know that you don't have anything to your name, But won't you go home and fix me something and bring it to me to eat? Some things don't change that much over time. Nothing in this widow's life was enough. Nothing gave her the resources she needed to even make one simple meal.